For this last panel, I'm pleased to be accompanied by Véronique Scheirs, pedagogical expert, and Kenedy Barboza Zambrano, project development manager for Latin America in ALTISSIA. And they will explain us how to create a participatory learning environment in embedding learning courses, taking the example of language courses. So Véronique is here, and Kenedy also.
We are. Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning.
Thank you. All right. Good. Well, thank you for this lovely introduction, Nicola. Good morning to everybody. What we'll do is, again, as was announced, we will be talking about blended learning in the special case of language learning. We are an edtech company, as was explained. We provide language learning platforms. We'll walk you a bit through it in just a minute. Let me share the presentation with you and we'll get going. All right.
Yes.
Okay. So as a quick word of introduction, maybe let's just introduce ourselves. Maybe Kenedy, you want to start?
Yes, of course. Can you hear me? Yes? Yeah.
Yes.
Good. So I am Kenedy, and as Nicola said, I am the project development manager for ALTISSIA in Latin America. I'm based in Colombia. I'm an industrial engineer. I speak both Spanish and English, and I have been working in the language learning industry for around 15 years. So I hope I can give some insights on what we've done with some of our clients in our region.
All right. My name is Véronique. I'm a pedagogical expert. I have a more academic background. I have a PhD in linguistics. Have worked in university, I've lectured in universities as well, and I have also worked in university language centers. So this extensive background led me then to move into e-learning more, but especially so I'm focusing on teaching with technology, blended learning. I'm Belgian initially, but I have been living in South Africa for the past few years. I speak English, obviously, is one of my languages, but I'm also a native speaker of German and French. But my specialty is more in Germanic languages itself. So today we'll be talking about blended learning with a platform such as the one ALTISSIA offers. The idea is really to show you that it's an asset, an opportunity for students, and therefore in language learning. For language learning, of course, especially in a university background, can be everywhere, right? We've been lecturing in foreign languages these days. Foreign languages are important parts of internationalization strategies. In such cases, especially online platforms are used extensively. And then, of course, there is the language studies as well. So here we're talking about blended learning as a planned form of instruction, not as an emergency form of instruction, as, for example, in the pandemic, but really as a planned form of instruction. The idea is also to really, and that's something I want to make clear from the very beginning, even though we are an e-learning platform that can be used in autonomous learning, the idea is never to replace teachers or any kind of instructor. Really far from that. We aim rather to provide extra tools, be it for learners or for teachers, extra input, the opportunity to learn at more different times in the week or in the teaching process, and also learning how to learn autonomously, for learners to learn at their own pace, become more aware of their learning process. And then in a bit, we'll also be sharing a case study of how blended learning with ALTISSIA specifically was implemented successfully at one of our partnering universities. So that Kenedy will be talking a bit more about this, so to really have a concrete example. Before we go really more in depth, I really want to start at the very beginning, which kind of joins back to what Professor Ramos has been saying just before. Sorry, I'm going too far here. Let me go back. So just quickly define blended learning so that we're all on the same page. So blended learning is a teaching or learning method that combines two modes of instruction. The first one is the synchronous mode, which can be in a physical brick and mortar classroom, but it can also happen online in a video conferencing in a virtual classroom. And this is combined, so the synchronous aspect is combined with an asynchronous aspect, where the learners are working autonomously online, in our case, with the platform. And again, so the difference here is mainly the teaching presence, the teaching present being the teacher, the lecturer in the synchronous aspect, but in the asynchronous mode, we don't have a physical teacher present. So this teaching presence is, of course, the platform. The beauty of blended learning is that it's extremely flexible in this and the repetition of the proportion of time spent online and in face-to-face learning. So we can have different really proportions. We can, in general, to just quote an average in the literature, we can find anything. There's a lot of different definitions, but we usually work on an average between 30 and 70% of online learning. But again, this can vary depending on your needs and the needs of your institution as well. So it can be a larger proportion of face-to-face, it can be a larger proportion of distance, autonomous learning, or it can be a perfect balance as well. So that is really a decision that can be made on an institutional level, on a department level, or just for each teacher individually, depending on really how you are working. That's really the beauty of blended learning, is that it allows a lot of things. I made clear that the idea is never to replace teachers with technologies. And this is really something we want to insist on. Teachers are, of course, essential. So teachers, lecturers, trainers, just as a global term, are really essential to the learning process. And they have this essential position in that they are really the link, they're connecting the learners, the e-learning, and also they're in charge of the whole learning process. So they'll never be replaced fully by technology. That is, at least, is our belief. And so they have really a central position. And the idea is to really combine the two systems, the online learning and the face-to-face learning, to really combine the strength to really have an improved learning experience and ideally the best of both worlds. Because online learning sometimes gets a bit of a bad reputation, sometimes in that it is maybe repetitive, it's limited, it's not perfect. But on the other hand, no tool is ever really perfect or really tailored to your needs unless you really create it yourself, which is extremely time-consuming and complex. For those of you who create exercises, maybe in an LMS or resources in an LMS, it's an extremely difficult process to do it as a teacher yourself. So why not use existing resources and make really the best of both worlds? So the idea is, like, online learning has a lot of advantages in that it allows, of course, for autonomous working. So this allows for differentiation, for personalization of the learning process as well, which is especially important if you have very heterogeneous classes where you have maybe learners of different levels or different fields of specialization. And if you take topics that might be too easy, too difficult, or maybe just too global and not relevant for the field of expertise, and learner engagement is not great, to say the least. So in order to really engage learners and at their own level, their own point of interest, e-learning is great because it allows for this differentiation and personalization. Of course, it allows also for flexibility in the program, as I said earlier, with the proportion, but also for the learners to work when they can or when they want or when they're able to. So we have this moment they can really work when they don't have to be in class, for example, from 9 to 10 on a Tuesday morning. If they're more evening, more efficient in the evening or in the early morning or even in the middle of the night, they really can work at their own pace when they feel the most engaged, the most receptive to learning as well. So that is also good for retention, of course, and for engagement. And then, of course, also it allows for more regular work. So again, classes is not only from 9 to 10 on a Tuesday, and then we don't have any more input until the next Tuesday, but we also have more regular input in the target language, which will, of course, help us improve faster and be more regular. And then, as I said, also learners are, through these processes, so the differentiation, the personalization, this flexibility of working when they want, when they can, and when they're most receptive and having more input, they are also more active, more engaged, and become autonomous learners and find ways to progress on their own, which is in the end what they want, to find opportunities to practice the foreign language as well. And then online learning can be, and that is really something I want to be careful about, can be less costly in that if it's part of an internationalization process, internationalization process rather, and no specific language courses are offered in a specific curriculum, it can be less costly to use an online platform to fill this gap, to bridge this gap rather, and to provide language instruction to learners where there's nothing else provided. But then, so these are all some of the advantages of online learning. I'm sure there's more, but these are the main ones really relevant here. And we combine this with the advantages of face-to-face instruction, which of course we have this, I'm sorry, why is my PowerPoint going the wrong way? And we're going back. Right, of course we have this human connection, we have peer learning, we have the socio-emotional component that is learning with peers, but also with an instructor. So we have this coaching, we have encouragement, we have guidance from a trainer, peer learning, group dynamic. Of course, in language learning, what's very important also is productive skills. We have the opportunity, which we don't really have that much in online learning, to speak, to practice the language, and also to have interaction. All this combined with the peer review and the instructor review is a great combination, of course, that will also motivate the learners, engage them socially, emotionally a bit more. We don't have this gap, this bridge we need to fill with the e-learning. And we can practice the language, of course. So these advantages can be really combined within a blended learning system, provided we use it accurately. The thing is, frequently we hear from clients, or even in blended learning anyways, the case is always that, yeah, but the online component, the learners aren't really doing the work. They're not really putting in the effort in the online component. They're just letting it there and maybe do it when they have to just before the exam as last minute panic. That is a classical case. That is especially to avoid this kind of occurrences, is rather to see these two components, the blended course, as two pieces of a same coherent whole, where we have two pieces of a puzzle. They're intrinsically connected, and the course is only complete with both parts. So if we have them coexist somewhere, but the connection is not clear, learners will neglect the online component, which of course is in no one's interest. The idea is really to see it as two pieces of the puzzle and to connect them properly, to link them, so that we get the full final picture together. And then, so in order to do this properly is of course to choose our activities in such a way to avoid useless repetition that would of course make one or the other mode obsolete, but really to use it in a complementary manner. So for example, if you have a platform such as ours that is a bit more receptive, that's usually the case in online learning, but it has a lot of advantages. You have automatic correction of exercises. You also can use it, learners can work at their own pace. So if they need to listen to a text, for example, or watch a video, and some learners need to watch it repeatedly, like maybe 2 or 3 times in order to be able to do the listening comprehension activities that go with it. This can be very disruptive if we do this face-to-face in class. On the other hand, online, they can work as often as they want. So we can really focus on these aspects in the online component, receptive skills. Exercises, also we can use, for example, work on grammar skills, grammar theory, and use kind of an inverted classroom technique later on in class and the face-to-face to really build on what's been done online, and then complemented with the skills that haven't been practiced online. So for example, we've watched a video online or worked on a grammatical topic, and then we can go more in depth in class, answer questions, do productive exercises, dialogues out of it, role plays, some kind of interactive exercises. And also it's a good way to complement it with more occurrences of informal learning, where learners will be able to have fun in the foreign language, because that also is an essential component in foreign language learning. Actually noticing that I am competent and I can be having fun in this as well. What's important also is the question we get a lot is blended learning, especially online learning, really a match also for all levels? Can all levels of learners benefit from online learning and from blended learning? And just to tell you, yes, of course it is. There are some adaptations we can do if it's possible for specific programs. So sometimes we have our programs that are set and we don't have this flexibility. Then of course we do the best we can to accommodate, but ideally, if we have some more time and we have this flexibility as teachers, we can, for example, have a higher amount of face-to-face time with beginners and slightly less time online in autonomy. But it doesn't mean that beginners don't benefit from autonomous online learning. As I said, they can really work at their own pace. They can have repetition. They can so they can repeat. They can read a text without disrupting the class or without being frustrated by their peers being faster or more efficient or louder simply in class. And also it can be used as a tool for preparation of communicative tasks, especially if we have very shy learners, and maybe they have to produce in class, in life, spontaneously. Beginners might have a harder time. Studies have shown that if they're able to prepare these tasks in an online tool before, they are more efficient and are actually more likely to take to speak in class and then participate in the activity. So obviously, as I said earlier, we can recommend shorter but more regular online sessions for beginners. Obviously, everything is new as well. If they're learning, starting out in a foreign language, everything is new. The grammar is new. Every word they encounter is new. Obviously, the retention rate will be lower, and the risk of cognitive overdrive is, of course, real. So we really want to not get them into overdrive. So we recommend shorter and more regular working sessions online, autonomously, combined with face-to-face learning. But again, this is an accommodation. If it's possible, it's possible. If not, we'll just do the best we can. For advanced learners, obviously, learning on their own autonomously, this autonomy concept is a whole process in language learning and finding occurrences to speak in a foreign language. So they benefit, of course, from autonomous work. And then if they're more flexible, they can choose their own activities, complement their activities as well, maybe be autonomous in the choice of their activities. A platform such as ours has different modules where you can actually select content that is relevant for you. So even for advanced learners, they find elements that might be interesting for them. So again, here we can have longer sessions online. But again, so the idea of regularity, of course, of the input, the frequency of input is more important in this domain. So yes, e-learning, blended learning is adapted to every level in foreign language learning. There's loads of things we can do on every kind of tool. And just to talk about ours a little bit, Kenedy is going to present you our platform a little bit.
Yes, thank you. And also for the sake of context, because now after this couple of slides, we're going to talk about the implementation we did with one of our clients. So just to give you a little bit of information about ALTISSIA, we have 25 learning languages. Most of those are European languages, but what we do with this is that we try to help universities and try to help institutions to expand their offers to be able to offer different types of languages besides English to their students, because this is an important thing in general for the internationalization pillars of universities. We also include the level assessment within the platform because we have different ways of implementing the platform. So we have purely online and autonomous learning, which mostly means that the student takes a test or a level assessment and then they're placing a level. and then they can work towards their goals. But then we also have other types of programs where we have to have like set and fixed learning paths so that the student is following a program and they can deliver certain objectives or reach certain objectives by a certain time. Now, we have 33 interface languages. Our platform is accessible from any device, and it's also we can also integrate it with LMSs, so we make the whole onboarding part for the student super easy and super simple. Learning paths, as I said, are ordered in accordance to the CEFR. So basically here, what we try to do, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in the pedagogical approach of the platform. But basically what we try to do here is just to go from the simpler content or to simpler components of the language in terms of grammar, in terms of vocabulary, to the more complex ones. And because the CFR is ordered in by objectives or communicative situations or abilities or skills that a speaker can perform, then this is the best way to move forward when trying to learn a new language, just like we do when we are learning by ourselves our first or mother tongue. Now, the content in the platform is vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, and some listening comprehension activities. As you can see, all of them are receptive skills or components of the language, which it makes ALTISSIA a great tool to integrate within a blended program, blended learning program, because then you still need and you still would have to have the teacher in order to develop all 4 skills at the same rate. Now, we have some professional and academic live content, which is also very important and very coherent with just trying to make English a little bit more something that the students can apply and use, or just the languages in general, but just something that they can use within their field, within their disciplines, and this will make the language at the end of the day more relevant. And finally, we have news and videos with articles that basically help the student get contextualized, maybe immerse them within the culture of the language that they're trying to learn. So if you're learning French, for example, then you would have news and news articles and news videos in French, and the same with English, same with German. So what we're trying to do here is for the student to see the language outside of a more, let's say, academic environment or more of a learning course, interface. We try to make them realize that this is something that they can get access with, that they can get context with, and that they can get opportunities with. So this is basically our approach on this side, Véronique. And then we have these 3 points that are the pedagogical, basically the pedagogical principles that we have for the platform. So as I said before, we base our scope and sequence just the way that students advance within the platform, going from the more simple stuff to the more complex stuff within the language. And what we try to do here is for the student to feel challenged, but also excited to continue learning. Because as with any learning, at the beginning, it is super easy to keep the students motivated because they're seeing new stuff every day. So it's always a new, let's say, a new exciting thing that they're learning. But as they get to more intermediate and advanced levels, then this curve starts to get flat, starts to flatten, and then they stop learning as many new things as they were doing before. So the excitement starts to go lower. So what we try here is just to have them reach different levels and different types of skills as they move forward, just for them to be very committed to continue using the platform. The second and third points, the communicative approach and action-based approach, are also both recommendations or the within the guidelines for creating language programs that are provided or, let's say, referenced by the CEFRL. Now, here for the communicative approach, what we do is we try to put the students as they are usually based or put in a situation where they have to achieve a communicative objective. What we try to do is that give them the tools in terms of grammar, in terms of vocabulary, in terms of connection of both, in order to perform an activity or perform an objective. For example, introducing myself. So for that, I would need probably some grammar and then some vocabulary, but then put together, I will be able to introduce myself by the end of this, by this lesson or this mission that we have in the platform. And then action-based approach, as we know, speakers are social actors. So what we do is that we learn a language in order to perform things, in order to achieve things. So what we are doing here is trying to have students perform an action as social actors. So what we do, for example, going to the supermarket and going through the list, right? So you have to ask in order to find things within the supermarket. Now, they have to do this by using the language. So the language is the vehicle, is the means in order to achieve an action. This is how it works in real life. So understanding all of this, what we do usually when we work with some clients that are interested in implemented blended learning, which is honestly a lot of the clients that we have in Latin America. And then I have one example here. Next. Thank you. We have one example here. This is a university based in Colombia. They had several problems when they started out. They had a problem with capacity, as most universities in Latin America do. We don't have enough qualified teachers or professors of languages to meet the demand of the amount of students. Also, when you have legislation that makes universities comply with a certain level of second language, then it also makes things a little bit more difficult. But also students have not had in the past a very good experience with other platforms and online resources. So what they try to do here is that, okay, so what do I have? I have 15 professors or 15 teachers, and I have thousands of students that need to meet an objective, that need to meet, let's say, at a certain level in order to graduate, in order to continue on with their studies. So what they, when we started talking, what they wanted or what they needed was to be able to solve these problems. So what we implemented and we helped them implement were two of our products. First thing is the language assessment, which is also part of the platform I just explained, and then the learning platform. They had several challenges here. So for example, for new students, they didn't know where to place them, where exactly to put them within that scale of all the levels that they had available. Also, just for context, in Colombia, it is very hard to change programs. It's you need to go through a whole process and administrative process within the university and then with the Ministry of Education in order to modify any program that you have. And in this specific university, then they have curricular English levels within their curriculum. They have different levels that they have to meet and they have to do, students have to take. Now, students needed to be placed, but they didn't know how to place them. They didn't have a tool to do this. Academic staff was performing below the expectations of the level that they should have. So they also decided to implement this type of solution, just have a language assessment and create a course from it. And then special projects that they may have that are usually required by the Ministry of Education in order to get them qualified or to get them to get their licenses renewed and this type of thing. Now, the learning platform is especially used for students in our undergraduate programs, but we also have some master's degree students and academic staff within the platform. I'm gonna focus mainly on the undergraduate programs where we had 3 different, let's say, study plans. So we had students who had been in the university for longer than 10 years, so they were still there and they had some levels of English to comply with, and then we have students who have been in the university within the last 10 to 6 years prior, and then you have the newer students who have a total different plan. So what we try to do here, and what the takeaway or the learning lesson here is that you need to find a resource that is flexible enough to meet at least most of the needs of your context. So what we do here usually is just we listen to whatever the needs are for the client, and we try to make a program that works for all of their audiences. Within a big audience of undergraduate students, I don't know, 7,000 people, then we had maybe 3,000 who were under this study plan, this other study plan, and this other study plan. So we had to meet all of their needs. Now, what happened here is that, and this is something that they needed to analyze too, because they didn't have enough capacity, operational capacity in terms of teachers. They had to decide how they were going to distribute that time. So they had 2 credits, which means 6 hours of English a week. And they decided to go for 70% asynchronous and then 30% synchronous. So what was the purpose of doing this division? They needed to be able to have teachers use their time with more students in a shorter period of time. So they needed to cover more students with the same amount of teachers. And also they wanted students to become more autonomous and more responsible of their own learning. Now here, we had to do several things in order for students to be able to, let's say, meet the expectations that we had for the program. So the first thing that you need to do, and the first reason why students stop being engaged in programs are, especially in online programs, are skills, digital skills. So sometimes some people, especially in our region, don't have the digital skills in order to be able to use a platform, in order to use a browser to connect to a platform. Then you also have students who just don't have the time or don't know how to manage their time. So when you give them a program where they're super free and they don't know where to go and they don't know how much they have to do on a weekly basis, for example, then they're gonna get lost and they're gonna get motivated and they're gonna prefer to do something else other than studying or using the platform. The other thing that could happen is that the student doesn't see, as Véronique mentioned, the student doesn't see the connection between what they're doing on the platform and what the professor or the teacher is doing in class. And then finally, you had students who just basically needed to complete this, and what the university did was that they gave a grade to the use of the platform. So they evaluate what the student is doing on the platform on a weekly basis. So here we were trying to solve many problems. So the first problem is how do we make the students stay, right? So the first one is just implementing a program where the student has clear expectations from the beginning. They know exactly what they have to do. We implemented a study program in order to be able to do this. Now, what they did actually, or we gave them all the tools in order to create this frequency. So what they did is that they set a certain amount of contents that the student had to complete weekly. So we set different learning paths for the different levels, and then each teacher was responsible for giving the students all the lessons and all the missions that they had to achieve during that week. And then at the end of that week, they evaluated. So we have 2 things. Student is usually checked on, and then we also have the commitment of the student who needs to complete this by this week in order to be able to move forward and not get behind in the course. Now, the 70% of asynchronous work here also focused on having the student just working on a very regular basis without having to meet the teachers so often. So here, what we try to do is for the student to do the part that is, let's say, more teacher talking time in a way. So just grammar explanation, introduction of new vocabulary, and then like listening comprehension exercises or reading comprehension exercises where the teacher is not really needed, at least during the activity. Then this is what they work on the platform. And then to keep them motivated, and then this is the part that is the most exciting and also the most nerve-wracking for some people, but also the most exciting, is being able to produce, being able to talk, being able to write in the language that you're learning, because at the end of the day, it gives you a bigger boost of of excitement to do that than to do the receptive skills. So what we do is that the student goes and works on the more receptive and autonomous skills. And then during the class, they have the opportunity to talk to the teacher, to talk to the other students, and to be engaged in more communicational activities, more productive skills-based activities. Something interesting and something that has worked in our region is to fix the learning path. So in Latin America, what we have usually is just a bunch of modules that divide the levels of the Common European Framework. And what they do is that they achieve a certain level by each semester. And this is the way they try to keep the program under like a certain control and under a certain time frame. So here what we did was just fix these learning paths, have the student know where they have to start, where they have to end, how long they have, and then follow up on them regularly. Now, the synchronous part of this program focuses on two things. One, I already mentioned, which is just conversation productive skills, but also on doubts resolution. So usually when the student is doing or working on an autonomous program, then they also need to have regular support. They need to be able to ask questions regularly, and then they need to be, these doubts need to be resolved. And this is another thing or another reason why they usually leave. They encounter a problem, they encounter some type of difficulty, and they are not able to go beyond that, to overcome that obstacle, which will be greatly reduced if they have a tutor, if they have a teacher on a weekly basis, but also if the tool that you choose in order to implement this type of program has a technical support. So usually a lot of students, if they don't have very good digital skills, then they probably will encounter problems while using the platform or any resource that you have. It is crucial for them to have an answer within, I don't know, the next couple of days in order to be able to continue with their learning and also to keep the motivation up. And then finally, there's one thing that is really important, and that whatever resource and whatever content you choose to use needs to be linked to the sessions that the students are doing during class. So it is crucial that the teachers or the professors are, let's say, proficient in whatever resource you choose, and they are able to connect or to link or to make one part as relevant as the other, so that the student feels the need to go back to the platform and then come back to class and use what I learned. So this is basically what we've been trying to do with them. And there's one more thing, and you always have to have continuous follow-up, continuous checkup on the student, and have even if possible some evaluations along the way, so that the student always feels like they never have to lag back. They have to continue on and keep on performing the program that they're supposed to perform. So we've had very good results with Ibero, during the past 12 months, and students are really excited to continue with their programs. And some of the things that they said is that they prefer to do this type of program because they have more time to do it. They don't have to do it on a fixed time where they are probably not feeling the best to learn or to absorb some information, but they may be feeling up to talking if it's something that we can do during the class. And this is basically what they've made kind of a culture within this university. So the class is just for fun, for talking, and for doing activities that are less academic, and that part we do on the platform, and then here we resolve doubts. But we're gonna have fun, we're gonna discuss, we're gonna answer the questions, and then we're gonna use the language that we learned on the platform.
So thank you to all of you, and wishing you a good evening for the one in Asia, especially in the Philippines, and a good day for the one in Europe, in Africa, in Lebanon also. So thank you very much once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a lovely day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.